Hello and welcome to Hello, my name is Megan Wilden. I'm the Executive Director of OLLI, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Berkshire Community College, and welcome to Hello OLLI, our new TV show. We're so happy to be here at Pittsfield Community Television with our most excellent crew, who are all seniors at the Miss Hall School, and we're excited to be part of this intergenerational partnership on the educational channel on PCTV. OLLI, for those of you who may not know, is a nonprofit program of the Berkshire Community College. We provide over 80 classes, trips, special events, and talks all over the Berkshires for our 1,000 plus members. And they're designed especially by and for people over 50 years old and include everything from the movies of Frank Sinatra, to Shakespeare in the Law, to Dante's Inferno, to today's headlines. We have amazing classes and talks. And today we're going to be talking with one of our instructors for OLLI for an upcoming winter class called Matters of the Mind. The class will be offered on Fridays beginning the second week of January, and you'll find out more about the class today, and then our catalog will be out in just a few weeks, so you can sign up if you're interested. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Dr Wollman to the show today.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thanks so much for taking the time out to be here. So you have taught for other OLLIs in the past, but this is the first time you'll be teaching for Berkshire OLLI, is that right?
And I look forward to it. We've had a wonderful experience with OLLI down in Connecticut, and I recently became acquainted with Berkshire OLLI and thought, let me reach out and contact you for offering this course.
Absolutely, and we're thrilled. And one of the amazing things about OLLI is that all of our instructors are volunteers. They volunteer their time to share on subjects that they know a lot about and they're very passionate about. And Dr. Wollman is a clinician educator. He is both a doctor and a professor. He studied at the University of Pennsylvania and lives in Connecticut and has a weekend home here in the Berkshires in Otis. So he's very connected in both communities. And tell us more about the class that you're offering.
So my colleague and associate, Dr. Deborah Pollack, originally started Matters of the Mind down in Connecticut, and that was a course in which we invited a number of individuals with experiences in the neurosciences and other areas to talk about matters of the mind. We came upon an idea that just sort of fell into our laps for OLLI Berkshires, and that was coinciding with the loss of Dr. Oliver Sacks, who recently passed away. Oliver Sacks has written prolifically in the field of neuroscience, bringing understanding of the brain and behavior to many people. So we thought, how could we bring this to a class in OLLI? And a light bulb emerged over our heads and said, let's use his collection of vignettes, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, as a textbook, and let's create a journey for people to learn about the brain and the nervous system and how it relates to our own behavior.
That sounds wonderful. So tell us how the class will unfold.
Okay. The class will begin with an introduction. We'd like to give everyone a roadmap, beginning with illustrations, images, and explanations of the human brain, and really an instruction set of how to approach the works of Dr. Sachs. Each week, the participants will read a section of the book, and it's really enjoyable reading nonetheless, if not even more informative. When we return the following week, we'll go back to our roadmap, back to our illustrations, back to our explanations, to reinforce what people have learned, and also to explore even more of what perhaps Dr. Sachs wanted us all to do, which is really take an introspective look into our own behavior and to not take for granted the things that we experience every day.
That sounds wonderful. And is this a field where there's a lot of new knowledge coming out? Is it changing a lot or deepening? Or?
Yeah. Things have changed dramatically even since my own training, which is almost 25 years ago. We once thought that the human brain in adult form was fixed, but now we know that even as we age, change is possible in a positive sense. We've learned that when people suffer injuries or suffer illnesses such as strokes, that the potential for them to improve is much greater. This is something that's really only been learned in the last 10 to 15 years. We call that plasticity, the ability of the brain to change. We learn more and more as days go on about the genetics, about the chemistry, about really how we can help to improve brain function for people.
That's great. So you'll be including information about the latest research and stuff in the class?
We would be happy to. And in fact, one of the things that I welcome in all of my lectures is a strong component of participation from the audience. I feel that my learning comes about from my communications with other people. So teaching for me has been the greatest form of learning for me. So I hope that the individuals who participate in this class come armed with questions. Questions and excitement to learn.
That's wonderful, because you just described OLLI students in a nutshell. What people really love about teaching for OLLI, I found, is how engaged the students are, because they all want to be there. You're only in an OLLI class if you're really curious about the subject and you really want to learn about it. So, and they also bring amazing life experiences and knowledge as well to the class. So I've heard from so many of our instructors that, how much they love teaching for OLLI because of that engagement and back and forth. And of course, we have lots of retired doctors along with many other professions in our midst, so I think that you probably will see a lively back and forth in your course.
All right, then this is sure to be a successful course.
That's wonderful. So I know that some of your areas of expertise that you teach around is on Alzheimer's, and I wonder how that relates to if that'll be touched on in the class, or how that relates to what the class will be about.
Almost certainly. One of the areas of taking care of individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related disorders, and also taking care of the caregivers of those individuals, is truly to help them understand the disease, to take away some of the uncertainty, some of the mystery. It's really a lot of the uncertainty that creates anxiety, fear. If I am able to help somebody understand why a condition produces some of the features, some of the behaviors that one sees, then I'm helping in some way. In this course, we will talk about, in particular, areas of the brain that are affected in Alzheimer's disease, not just the component that most people think of, what we call memory, short-term memory, but really other areas as well. So I think that the participants of this class, in many ways, will be learning so much about the brain, really to become armed with knowledge to pursue their own further study in brain diseases and their own behavior.
That's terrific. So with the plasticity aspect of the brain, which is so wonderful, does it kick in at all with Alzheimer's?
Plasticity is an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Now, when people are suffering from certain diseases, whether they are progressive diseases like Alzheimer's disease-related disorders, or a disease in which an injury occurs, like a stroke or head injury, where there's no further damage, but the opportunity to improve. I always will say to people, we never want to rest on the idea that we can't make a change. It's always important to be exercising, and exercising the brain. There is never anything lost in brain exercise. One of the concepts that is so important we talk about in either reducing the chances that we will suffer the adverse effects of Alzheimer's disease, trying to push it off as long as possible, if that is a disease that we are unfortunately destined to experience, is to exercise the brain. No better way to exercise the brain than through learning. So I applaud everyone who participates in any kind of ongoing learning exercise, OLLI being such a wonderful outlet for that, because it reinforces the strengths of our brain. That is a form of plasticity, ongoing learning.
Great. So not only will people who take your class will learn a lot, but they'll be exercising their brain at the same time. And I do think that that OLLI is a real boon for the larger community as well as its members, because it provides the opportunity to keep the brain active and engaged by learning new things, and also the social and interaction and the volunteer opportunities are also both shown in studies to be good for your health, both mental and physical.
I couldn't agree with you more.
That's very exciting. So if you're just joining us, this is the Hello OLLI TV show. It's brought to you by the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Berkshire Community College with a wonderful crew from Miss Hall School on Pittsfield Community Television. And we're talking today with Dr. Dan Wollman. I was afraid I was going to go Don Wollman. And I don't know, there must be something in the brain about that.
Yes, that is. We call that paraphasic error, the switching of a letter. It's okay. It's okay.
It's not a sign of anything?
No.
I almost forgot the month March earlier when we had to recite all the...
No.
I'm having interesting... the brain is a fascinating creature that lives inside our head, right?
It is. It is.
I guess that's one way to put it. Anyway, if you're interested in finding more about OLLI, you can find us online at berkshireolli.org, OLLI. You can call us at 413-236-2190 or email us at OLLI, OLLI, at berkshirecc.edu. And Dr. Wollman will be teaching a fascinating class for us this winter, beginning in the second week of January, called Matters of the Mind, which is a look at the brain. And I know you use some big words about that. Tell us more. Tell us again what the class is about.
So Matters of the Mind will be a class taught by myself and my colleague, Dr. Deborah Pollack, a neurologist who works closely with me. This is a journey through the human brain using the works of Dr. Oliver Sacks in his collection of vignettes from The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. In many ways, I think of Dr. Sacks as the teacher of this course, and we are the guides.
Oh, nice. And it's neurobiology, is that the correct term?
Yeah, so we'll be talking about two aspects of, let's call it neuroscience. We'll be talking about both function and structure. So we'll be looking at the anatomy. We'll be looking at the actual brain. We'll be looking at the different areas of the brain and the pathways that connect each area of the brain. But more importantly, we'll be also exploring the function, the operations that are performed by those areas of the brain to understand how, when either of those areas are not functioning properly, what we call loss of function, that we can understand why individuals might experience certain perceptual abnormalities. The title of the book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, is one such abnormality, a loss of a perceptual experience that we take for granted.
Right.
Our ability to recognize, and in fact to recognize faces. But we'll also be looking at what Dr. Sachs described as disorders of excess. What happens when parts of the brain are functioning beyond what they were originally intended? Is this sometimes a positive, but also sometimes a negative feature? We'll be talking about this third section, an area called transports, the experiences that sometimes occur when our memories come back into our consciousness as if it were the present. Disorders that are sometimes seen in epileptic seizures. And then finally, to talk about the gifts that are sometimes overlooked in those individuals with developmental disabilities. Gifts that are overlooked because we tend to focus mostly on what they're not able to do as opposed to what they are able to do. So the gifts of those with loss.
So, for example, if someone loses their sight and their hearing, they develop a better sense of hearing, like that,
or they are paying greater attention to that. In the last section of the book, we'll be talking about individuals with unusual abilities, what we refer to as savants. They are sometimes overlooked because of they're not able to do the activities on a daily basis of what we expect people to do, but when given the opportunity to show these remarkable abilities, this was most notably shown in Rain Man movie from many years ago, the ability to count cards, the ability to remember numbers, strange abilities that many of us could only hope to have, but these individuals so effortlessly demonstrate.
And is that because one part of their brain is much stronger?
Unknown.
And it's still, we don't know. Isn't that fun that we don't know everything?
Yes, right.
I
so
think
little
so.
that we know.
Yeah. And that's a great reason to take this class and find out more about the brain. And of course, so little we know would be a great motto for OLLI, because there's always more you can learn. We have so many different classes and trips and special events and talks that people can come and enjoy and learn more about new things. So you also specialize in geriatrics. So will you be talking in the class about how the brain changes as we grow older?
Yeah, we will,
or does it? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't.
The brain absolutely changes.
Okay.
It is in constant flux. So, certainly the field of geriatrics, and we often, or at least in my program where I trained at Mount Sinai, our department was the Department of Geriatrics and Adult Development, and I think that that's a recognition that we do develop. We change, our brain changes, our thinking changes over time. The best example of this is to look at small children. Small children are so absorptive of raw knowledge, little sponges. They hold on to everything.
They're research scientists.
And they are. But they're not as good at synthesizing new concepts. They are wonderful at rote memory. It's over time that we start to develop the ability to integrate the different pieces of information, to combine information in novel ways, to synthesize new ideas. We're not as good as we get older at just raw memorization. Certainly other aspects of the brain in early development are geared to developing function. Language at a young age is far easier than language acquisition at an older age.
Right.
And so anyone who's tried to learn a foreign language as an adult can probably attest to that.
Absolutely.
But we will talk about that in terms of the normal developmental process. I think a lot of people also ask, what is the normal process in aging for memory? A lot of times people will be told by a doctor when they are suffering from a memory problem that it's just normal aging. I like to remind people that there's nothing normal about it's just normal aging when people are suffering from a significant deterioration in their memory or cognitive function. It really does require the attention and evaluation by a doctor. If it's something that's certainly of concern, of worry, etc., it may turn out to be something that's relatively easy to fix, but there's nothing served by people remaining anxious and worried about a problem they're having.
Right.
But many people will complain or will report to me, they say, I'm having memory loss. Is that a sign of Alzheimer's disease? A lot of times it is a sign of our emotional state, which plays a tremendous role in our cognitive function.
Right.
Anxiety, depression, overstimulation, trying to multitask. We're not geared to multitask. We're really geared to focus on a particular topic and to focus on it well at one time, but not to have 5 different topics going on at once in our heads.
Right, and these days with the way the media is and the internet and computers, we have an incredible amount of information coming towards us all at the same time.
And it may be the case, and I'm sure there are many people studying this right now. The way we acquired information through media prior to the internet is very different from the way we acquire information now.
Yeah, I mean, there have been studies just on reading a physical book versus reading on the screen, and I think retention is better when you read a physical book.
I don't know, because it may be that it's for the individuals who are training now. So, for example, my medical students do not purchase textbooks, which was a shock to me as I look at my own library of textbooks. But they're clearly performing at a level comparable to the way we performed years ago. So I think they're learning in different ways.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be open to that idea that new forms of media will produce perhaps a different form of learning.
And slightly different brain setup.
Absolutely.
So the wonderful young ladies who are filming us today, you guys your brain may be a little different because of the way you interact with the world and so forth. Oh, definitely. All right. Well, that's very interesting. Well, my theory, and I thought I read a New York Times article about this, but who knows, is just also as you get older, you end up with, you have such a large storehouse of information in your brain, and I think of it, this is how old I am, I think of it as, you know, like the card catalogs in the library or files, so that, you know, you have this giant room of files that it just takes longer to find that file where you're looking for, whether it's the name of, you know, your cousin's cat or, you know, Lyndon Johnson's vice president or something. But it's usually, it's there, it just takes longer. Is that crazy?
Absolutely. No, I think that's entirely a wonderful way to approach it. The information that we need or that we use more regularly typically will be more accessible and readily accessible.
Right.
The information that we use infrequently is pushed farther down. And it may be a little bit harder to retrieve. We ultimately should be able to retrieve it, but because it's not as important. The brain is a fascinating structure which seeks to optimize. One of my dear colleagues has studied this from an engineering perspective, or the field we refer to as computational neuroscience. And we really can understand the brain as a very efficient structure that says things that are more important, we will devote more attention and energy so that that information is available, and the things that are less important get pushed down.
And also, and that changes as your life changes also, of course.
Changes on a moment-by-moment basis.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the best explanations or examples of this is when we look at vocabulary words. I would probably ask the students here, they probably have all of their SAT vocabulary words that are probably still fresh in their minds as they're applying to college. But over time, those vocabulary words will still be remembered but pushed farther down, and trying to remember the definition of that obscure word that is not commonly used in everyday language, it's not as necessary to devote precious cerebral resources to keep that fresh in what we call working memory.
Oh, fascinating. Well, again, this is one of those classes I wish I could attend. I can't, but perhaps you can, the listeners. Dan Wollman will be teaching with
Dr. Deborah Pollack.
Yep. Matters of the Mind on Friday afternoons at the Lenox Library beginning in January. For more information about taking his class and becoming a member of OLLI, you can go online to Berkshire OLLI, OLLI.org. You can give us a call at 413-236-2190 and request a catalog and to join our mailing list. Or you can send us an email at olli, OLLI, at berkshirecc.edu. So Matters of the Mind will not only be a fascinating look at the brain, it will also be excellent exercise for your brain. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Megan.
We'll see you in January.
Wonderful.
Thank you.